Hey guys, J77 here doing another flashback review, and today's review is pretty much a holiday special that I'm going to be doing all December. Some of the hot films I saw in the holidays, as well as some films that even that goes far back from the 1920s. The first film I'm going to be talking about is A Wonderful Life. And this film, I gotta tell you, surprised me big time. This is a film, like many other films that were in black and white. I didn't think too much of it. I found out about this film very, very late in my young adulthood. I had never seen this film as a kid. I saw this film. The first time I saw this film was in 1997. I believe HBO had played it early in the morning. I happened to click through this film, and from the very start, I was hooked. I wanted to watch this film, and I stayed watching this film. This was a very memorable film. It starts out by George Bailey. He's the main character, played by a very good actor. He, according to these two angels, he was about to commit suicide, but before, and he has sent one angel to prevent this from happening. However, before he even sent him to prevent the suicide from occurring, we get a flashback told brilliantly in beautiful sequence. In this flashback, we see his childhood, and in this one, we see some important key elements where he saved his brother's life from drowning in an iceberg. As a result, he lost hearing in his left ear, I believe, and that scene was very, very important. Another scene that was done in his childhood is pretty much the most darkest and perhaps scariest scene. I mean, I was very uncomfortable with this scene. This is a scene that really struck my nerve, even at my age. Is where the old man, he was grieving over the death, I believe, of his son. And he was so distraught that he was not really paying attention to the medicine he was given to one of his clients. And as a result, Bailey, the young Bailey, caught it. And instead of giving that medicine, he basically tossed it aside. Well, of course, he found out about it, and Bailey basically got beat up. I mean, he got the living hell smacked out of him to the point where he was actually bleeding. And I was like, wow, this is for a Christmas film. This sure is pretty dark, and I felt it. Even the young girl who I will talk to about later on, felt it. It was very, very deep. But in the end, he was able to calm him down and explain what was going on, and showed him if he would have gave that medicine, he would have killed one of his clients. And in terms, he was very, very thankful. He was hugging, he was crying, but he made sure he kept a promise that which was explained later on in the movie, that he never told anybody what happened. It flashed back to his younger self, pretty much his teenage years. He's just finished getting college, and the girl the little girl who was in the shop with him as a kid is also there, and they start dancing around and everything else. There was a scene before that about his father, and you can tell his father was not well, wants him to run the bank business, but he has a very strong conviction to go out and explore the world and do other things, and staying in the small town and not running the family business was one of them. This was very important because throughout this main film, because he tried numerous times to get to leave the town, and he didn't do it, basically because he wanted to explore other things. But lots of things started happening, a lot of stuff, and I'm going to get to that very briefly, that kept him in that town. The first thing that kept him in the town pretty much happened after the graduation party. He was graduating, there was dancing, and of course one of the people that he was dancing with happens to be the girl that he grew up with, who happens to have a date, which was played by Alfalfa himself. And as a trick, he got, they opened the floor, the slider floor, which revealed a swimming pool under, and he fell in that swimming pool. And that situation happened. They walked back home, with a towel, which is kind of funny. I didn't know they can do that back in the days, but it's the movies. And basically, they was in a very strange communication. It was fun communication. She was having fun, but then the fun was then stopped by a car, picking up George Bailey to tell him that his father has passed away. He had a heart attack. They didn't really explain. They didn't go too deep into it, but we pretty much know he died because in the next scene, they was talking about a guy, a ruthless, heartless villain, probably one of the most darkest villains in all of holiday movies that I've seen to date. But this guy, and I explain why, because there's something in the ending that really caught my attention. He wanted the bank. He never liked it. Bailey's father. He also felt he should be the one taking over the bank. He is not loved by many people. He's very greedy, very old, but very greedy, very ruthless. And they was about to give him the bank, but when he started insulting his father, Bailey just losing it. He started talking. He started, giving all sorts of lips, and he ran out storming the thing, thinking that the bank was going to be closed and give it to him anyway. However, the shareholders, stockholders, whatever you want to call them, said no. They said that if he runs the bank, they will keep it operating as is, and against his wish, against what he felt like. He did not want anything to do with the bank. He did not want anything to do with the father's business. But realizing the consequences, this is the key word, consequences, if he didn't take that role. God knows how many people will suffer on the hands of Potter. I think that's the villain's name. So he took over the bank, but now years traveling, years, I think about 2 years, I believe, where he's already having plans. He's already dealing with that. He's already having plans that his brother's going to come back and take over the business, and in which he can make plans to see the world, find work outside of the small town, and he's real pumped up. Unfortunately, that took a nosedive when he realized that his brother came back and he's married. I mean, and it caught everybody by surprise, including his brother, because there was nothing else going on. Now, this is something very important. His brother was going to stay. He was going to stay and say, look, I'll run the family. You've been doing it so long, and I know you want to go out in the world, and I'm going to keep my promise. But Bailey, knowing his wife, knowing that he's married now, and it's more likely that it may not work out with the situation, with the arrangements, he basically tore up all his plans, and basically that dashes any true hope that he have of moving out into the world. His mother, wise, beautiful mother that she was, told him about his first love, his childhood friend, and he went to visit her. And this is where the scene really got eerie. He wanted to. Okay, guys, I do apologize for the jump cut. There was something that came up. I had to take care of that real quick. But anyway, she went back. He went to her friend's house, revisited, and it seems this scene, I know there's a lot of tension. Obviously, he did love her, but he was very resentful of showing that. The same thing go with her, and I think after a phone call with some sleazy guy that I think she was seeing, I think he pretty much broke down, and he pretty much started crying, and pretty much without any words confessed his love. They ended up kissing, and they ended up getting married in the next scene. This scene also showed the importance of this character, because as you all know, the Great Depression had struck, and being that he is a CEO of a bank, everybody's rushing to get their money out of the bank at the same time, which caused a very serious dilemma, which he had to deal with, and dealt with. He did. In this case, he just basically made it out with $2 still in the bank, which was kind of interesting. But he managed to survive that. His wife purchased the house, which they have lived throughout the many days, and years and years go past, and we start seeing Bailey growing a family. But at the same time, while his family's growing, while while things are changing around him, you don't get the sense that he's a very appreciative. You get the sense that he's frustrated, and that's largely because of the people he's dealing with. Keep in mind that his rival, the scumbag that he is also has part of the stake in his bank, and he's trying to put pressure on him, basically wearing him out. Christmas Eve comes to pass, and in Christmas Eve, we have a situation. His longtime friend and co-partner have lost some money, lots of money, and now that put him in the hot water. What made it even worse is the guy who knew that person lost the money never told him that, hey, I got the money here. No, he's evil. He wants to bring down Bailey as much as possible, and he stole the money in hopes to get him arrested. In this scene, he went to him for help. I believe that he was asking for some money, and he said, look, what you're doing is wrong, and he was about to call the authority, which he did, and that led him to a very much, basically a nervous breakdown. With a point where he was coming home, and this is pretty much the darkest part of the movie. He's basically shouting at his kids. I think he destroyed a flower, and one of the scenes he's in, he's about to jump off a bridge, and this is where the angel comes in. The angel came in, stopped him by throwing himself off the bridge, and he explains that after getting dried up, he explains that, hey, look, I'm the guardian angel, second class. Obviously, they have different ranks in this movie. I don't know why, but in this case, he hasn't earned his wings. So obviously, second class don't have wings. First class do. He's a second class. He don't have his wings yet. And if he was to do the deed with him, it pretty much will get him the wings that he needed. In terms of this, Bailey is going crazy. He's saying that he wishes he's never been born at all, and that gave the angel an idea to alter time. He altered a time where he didn't exist, and I gotta tell you, this is the scene. This is the part of the rest of the movie I truly admire, I truly respect, and I truly love. Even though it was very dark, but it made a lot of sense to be in this movie, and I'll explain as I give my final thoughts on this film. Bailey gets his wish, and he sees firsthand of what happens when he wasn't there, when he didn't exist. He saw the effects, and this is more like the effects of of what he did in the past. His brother's not alive; he's dead. The father's still dead, but now his mother, who don't know who he is living a cold, lonely, sad life. The building that used to be the bank building has been turned to, I believe, a sleazy, strippers joint. Crime is on the high. Everything is going crazy. The old man, which lost his family member with a telegram. He's now been thrown in the streets, and people hate him because of the medicine which barely stopped him from giving one of his clients actually was delivered, and it poisoned a kid. They didn't explain if it killed him. It didn't explain if it didn't, but people looked at him, ridiculed him, and threw him out. It was just a horrible mess. And he realized at the end, at that very end, that to appreciate what he had. And I think because he said, I wanted to be born, he wanted to exist, that's when people started, that's when the spell was reversed. And he was happy, screaming and everything else. He went to the guy who basically is a sleazeball, still calling the cops. And he went home. He explains that he was happy to see everybody. He hugged his family. And then in the end, it pretty much ended where everybody's donating money to him, trying to help him out because he helped out a lot of people. He helped out a lot of families, and they donated a lot of money to him. Even the cops who came to arrest him, they looked at this, say, we can't do this, and put the money in there. And the end, which I think it was pretty much heartwarming. I think I was choked up a little bit. He gets a telegram from his guardian angel saying that, hey, I'm glad that you see things now. I got my wings. I just want to let you know. And one of the classic things I've seen, that when you heard the bell from the star tree, says, anytime a bell rings, an angel gets its wings. And it pretty much ended like that. This is a phenomenally good movie. I absolutely love this film. But as usual, in this new format, I'm gonna tell you what I liked, and also I gotta tell you what I didn't like, which is very, very few. What I like about this film is it didn't follow a lot of the usual traditional Christmas films that I've seen. This was a very, very well balanced. It was, charming, and yet it was dark. And it was dark at one of the right scenes. One of the things I always have a problem with a lot of holiday films is they try to show everything as crystal clear, charming. They talk down to the audience. This film didn't do that. It wasn't afraid to take a chance. It wasn't afraid to give a shock, to shock the audience. And that's one of the things I liked about this film very, very much. It wasn't afraid to shock the audience. Another thing I liked, the acting was superb. The young child actors was good. People say, oh, they were quirky. Hey, look, they were child actors, and for what it's worth, I thought they were good. Brilliant performance by the older actors. Brilliant performance by the co-stars. The pacing here was well balanced. Probably one of the well balanced movies I have seen in the holiday film. Well balanced. And the story was genuine. This was a very good story. And keep in mind, this was based on a postcard. A postcard. But this was not, this didn't have a book. I mean, when you can base something of a simple of a postcard and make a good story out of this, that says a lot. This is a great, great story. What I didn't like about it, and this is probably the only thing I didn't like about it, is the fact that the villain didn't get his comeuppance. And that holds no strength in this film. This film is still a brilliantly, perfectly run movie. But I always did bother me. This guy got away with the stuff he was doing. That vicious, heartless, disgusting villain pretty much got away with murder. He never got convicted. You never heard from him again. He stole practically the money. He never, came to the guy and said, look, I have your cash. Here it is. Tell your boy to be careful next time. No. He purposely took the money in hopes of getting rid of Bailey. Now, Bailey's not going to jail, obviously. All the money was donated back, so he was able to pay it back. But the point was, what about this dude? They never got caught. And in many ways, I'm kind of glad that that actually happened, because not all bad guys get their comeuppance. And in this scene, it was one of them. But it always did bother me. It always did. That's the only bad thing I hated about that film, because I wanted him so badly to go to jail, and nothing really happens to him. And I think it was addressed by a couple other people. This film had great reviews. When it came out, it was very, very respectable. It was nominated for a Golden Globe. Surprisingly, no, this film, and I noticed a lot with a lot of films that came out at that period piece, especially with holiday films, they didn't do well in the box office. It barely made its money back. In which it's kind of sad, but like other films that is timeless classics like these, it definitely made it up when it's shown on TV and on cable. I, for one, am very happy I got a chance to see this film. I actually bought this film at one point, got to buy it again because somebody stole my DVD when I had it. But this is a memorable, very great fairy tale, and for me, I hope they never make a remake of this. This is one film I believe that should stay the way it is. I think the star power in this film is great, and I don't think they can actually recapture that same magic that these actors and this film have done. I know there was similar films that was made for TV. One was recent, but I didn't see. But this film is pretty much genuine, and I really do enjoy it. Now, as usual, this film pretty much works better if you watch it as a holiday film only. You don't really have to, because the film you can actually watch this in any day and it holds up strong. But to really get a true feeling of Christmas, true feeling of the holiday spirit, this film has pretty much, you can watch this during the Christmas holiday season and pretty much watch with the family, because there's a lot of symbolic messages in this film that I really did appreciate. Like I said, the last act of this film I enjoyed very much, because it showed, for the most part, in my opinion, in my actions, how one person's actions can affect everybody. And that was why the angel did what he did, because he was saying he was better off if he never existed. And the angel said, oh really? Alright, let's just go over here. If you didn't exist, then you would not be able to save your brother's life from falling into a cracked ice lake. You wouldn't be able And by the way, because of that reason, because his brother was in the military and he had done something to save the lives of millions of American sailors, because of that reason, because he wasn't born, he wasn't able to save those sailors. All those sailors died. So his effect of saving him in the future ended up saving those American soldiers. Perfect example. If it wasn't for the fact that he wasn't exist, who was going to take over the bank? There was no other living relative to take over the bank. He is and because of that, the vile, vicious fiend took over the bank. If he didn't exist, then the stuff with all the other characters, like you had a couple of friends, they would not have been messed up. If he wouldn't existed, then the guy, he wouldn't prevent his old boss from giving the wrong medicine to the wrong person, and as a result probably killing him, or even or just poisoning him, because like I said, we didn't know what happened, but obviously something bad happened where he lost his store and pretty much lost respect from the community. All that stuff that he said he would be better off to would have happened if he didn't exist. And it really did open my feelings on that, because we do a lot of stuff that do affect everybody, both good and both bad. And I think that this film actually proved that. And I was actually happy they made that story. There was a lot of stories in this film. It was like miniature stories. Like the beginning, it was more about him, and his upbringing. In the middle, it was more about him trying to leave the town, but he couldn't. In the end, he couldn't. But this was the main story that I really, really admired the most. About him, about what would have happened if he hadn't existed, and I'm actually glad they included that in this movie. Obviously, this is one of the films that I rarely give 4 stars to. This is one of the films that's got it. It's a 4-star film. It is a great holiday film. It's a great family film. I would say it still holds up to this day. I will say that, but I will say this: there are some images that may frighten young kids, especially the scene when in the beginning of the film where his boss is hitting him because he's basically drunk and he's basically pretty much out of there. That may scare kids. I mean, this is it holds no punches showing that. It is a very dark film, but you gotta remember the times, and you also gotta remember that there was not really a full gender on movies back then. Most films was made for a specific reason. We know what westerns are because, hey, obviously westerns were they were set in the West. But in this one, I can forgive it for that. It didn't hurt the film. In fact, it made the film even more genuine, more realistic. But there are some very strong, scary images that even I had a hard time going through. I had to really my stomach through because it really nerved me. And believe me, in that case, it's a good thing because it kept it real. It wasn't fake. It wasn't bad, and that's the key. It wasn't terrible. But you guys may have a different. Have you seen this film yet? Do you have great memories of this movie? Please let me know. Let me know your favorite scene in this movie. But until then, this is J77 saying sign off. Until next time.